I'm your host, Jessica Hatch, and welcome to another episode of Hatching for Health. We are here to inspire hope, spotlight rare battles, and unite families. The Uniting Families part today is very important to me as we are meeting with a world-renowned fertility expert, Dr. Mark Sklar. Welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, coming from San Diego and bringing you down to this beautiful heat, to talk about fertility.
Well, I will talk about fertility anywhere, so.
I really appreciate it. I mean, you are helping couples like really all around the world achieve their baby goals, really.
Yeah.
I think a lot of like what you talk about is if what you're doing has not created a baby, then obviously you need to fix something. And that's what you do. I mean, I personally embarked on a lot of your videos via YouTube, and it's at Mark Sklar, the fertility expert, where you can find you, as well as on Instagram. But so tell me, where did this journey take off for you?
Some of it just really happened by chance. I knew that I had an interest in working with women's health. I did not know that I wanted to work in the fertility space and reproductive health. And when I was in school and I was in the clinic, the last year we're seeing patients in the school clinic, 80% of the patients that I saw were all women coming in for some sort of menstrual related, hormonal related issue. And so that kind of piqued my interest. And then one specific woman who came in was my first fertility patient. And she had PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. When I would say more commonly, the more common presentation with PCOS is that a woman might not menstruate regularly.
Okay.
They might have 3, 4, 6 menstrual cycles a year, but they typically don't menstruate at a regular time every month.
Okay.
And their ovulations are off, and so their cycles are longer. And so she was having a hard time regulating her hormones and having a regular menstruation and ovulation to even be able to try.
I see.
And so within the first 4 and a half months, we had regulated her cycles and they were consistent. So she comes in one day and she says, "Mark, something's wrong. We were doing so well, and now I'm not getting my period again. And it should have been here." I don't remember what time frame she said. And I look at her and I say, "Before we get concerned, how about you take a pregnancy test? Here's a test. Go to the bathroom and let's find out what it looks like." And she came back with a big smile on her face because it was positive.
That's amazing.
And it was magical, right? It was magical for her, obviously.
Of course. But
it was truly magical for me. I mean, for me, that moment really changed my life. When I saw her, what I was able to help her do and to change her life and to have the family, I helped her with her second as well, and to have the family of her dreams. I mean, to me, that was just magical. That's really what pushed me in this direction. So I don't think she realizes how impactful she was to my life.
But yeah.
She just thinks about it the other way around, and I'm grateful for that opportunity to help her. But she really changed my life dramatically and pushed me down this road.
Okay, and your practice is actually in San Diego, California?
Yeah, it's in San Diego.
But so much of the help you provide is basically online with these programs. I think you have like 1 or 2 different programs, but
yeah.
I think what, intrigued me, it's like, you provide so much valuable information, like with no cost. Like you get on there and you're just like, you're just feeding me. I'm personally in a fertility journey I want to touch on with you in the second half. But the amount of knowledge that you provide, it's like, it's amazing. Like you can literally just watch you and like get everything you need. But turning it into a program where people are engaged with either yourself or your team, like when did that kind of take place so that you could actually, truly get to connect with these patients and see the difference you're making around the world?
Yeah. So funny enough, I started my YouTube channel really to help my patients in San Diego because I found myself repeating the same thing over and over. Okay, so I want you to track your cycles and this is how you do it and whatnot, right? So all these things that I speak about on a regular basis. And so I started my videos for that purpose. And I had really no long-term intention of what it would become other than just providing information to them. And then I started realizing that all these other couples were watching this from all over the world, and they were reaching out to me saying, "Oh, can you help me? What can I do about this? And how can you support me? And can I work with you?"
And you wanted to help everybody.
Yeah, and
Like,
I was
how
like,
do I
wow,
do
I
this?
can help all these people that I just never dreamed that I'd be able to help just sitting in San Diego. And so that was really the spark that started me to come up more with a schedule and program, if you will, for the YouTube channel, and then from there really to develop more programs specifically to support couples throughout the world.
Okay. And what do you find, like, as far as like the age group? Because it seems like you focus a lot on, the 35 and older, or even like, 40. Is that a more common, age that's coming at you to, gain knowledge, be a part of the programs, or what age do you typically see them starting at?
Yeah, the reason we focus between 35 and 45 is because that is about 80% of the population of members in the program. And if I were to track all the emails and messages I get, that's pretty much where they fall.
Really?
We do have some who are younger, and we have some that are older, but in general, that's where they are, because most people, and rightly so, they don't set out on this journey to have a family and say, oh, I need help, and we need to look for support, and let me see what else I can do. We were taught that it was going to be relatively straightforward. When you wanted to get pregnant, you just tried.
Exactly.
Right? So, rightly so, they're trying first. And then once they realize, for whatever reason, it's been challenging, then they'll start to look for more information. They don't typically reach out right off the bat when they're having some difficulties. They do what you did. They go to YouTube or something else. They're looking for more information. Then they start to work on those things on their own that they might have incorporated. And then maybe if they're still not successful, or they tried insemination or IVF and that wasn't successful, then at some point in that process, when they've already tried and they failed, that's when they typically reach out. I would love for them actually to reach out sooner.
I know. In a way, I wish I found you sooner. Yeah, because I think a lot of the things with like egg quality, and I know there's a bit of that with like scientific research. I guess it's not like you can actually Google that happens, but if anything, you're making yourself healthier. The number of things that you go over with improving egg quality, and can you actually touch on that? Because I feel like at the age I'm at, and considering kind of things I've been through, like what is the most probably valuable thing you could say about that when you're talking about a woman 35 and older? In
terms of improving egg quality? Yeah, so the first thing I always like to say to everybody is, I think egg quality is super important. But I don't think, and I know that not every fertility issue is an egg quality issue. So, I think we make an assumption that once we hit 35, because of all the information out there and what we're told, that, oh, if you're 35, your eggs are too old, and so you need to work on egg quality. And I'm not saying that's not something to work on. I'm just saying that I don't believe, and I see this clinically, that all fertility issues are egg quality, whether you're 35 or 40 or whatnot. Now, if we're going to assume that there's an egg quality issue, and we do want to enhance that, I think first and foremost, we all have to start with the basics. And that comes back to really taking care of ourselves, right? We get used to our habits and the things that we do, and we forget that some of those things might be contributing to some of the issues that we're having. I'm not saying we have to be saints and we have to be perfect all the time. But really striving for about 80% of eating really solid, eating really well, and really being cautious of the food that you eat. And then we've got some room for some flexibility.
And you touched on like the chemical parts too. Like even some of your videos talk about just like what you're using in your home, like what we're exposing ourselves to when we wash our hands, when we clean. I think that those things were even super valuable to me. Like I changed all my products, and like I have the dogs, and you're like talk about the dog hair, and like taking off your shoes at the door because you bring in all these bacteria, and it's like there's just so many things that like they add up on like and affecting our eggs, right? Like who knew? I always thought I'm a healthy like woman, and this was literally without me knowing near as much as you do or many other women out there. I was like, I'm healthy, so it won't matter if I try and get pregnant now or at 40. And I did not realize that like your eggs actually, you still might have an abundance of them, but they change. Like they kind of age, I guess, a little quicker maybe. And I just I'm just kind of touching on some of the value I've personally found, like in little bits of clips and my vitamin intake as well. I mean, touch on that a little bit, because, you know, we all think we're taking prenatals, we're good, but there's so much more.
Yeah, so that's part of those foundational things that I was talking about, the chemicals and the toxins and then the supplements that we're taking. There's a lot of things that our body needs that our food no longer provides, or we're just not getting, or because of the world we live in, that we need more of, right? Or something a little bit different. And so I think making sure we have a good solid foundation in terms of all the different vitamins and supplements we're taking is also really important. Not just a prenatal, but some of us might not even need a prenatal yet, where we might need some of those key nutrients that are going to help enhance egg quality in this example. So like CoQ10 and fish oils and vitamin D, these are all things that are essential that any woman who, and for that matter, man who's on the fertility journey should all be taking. You know, these set that foundation. Now, I do think because of all the information out there that many of us end up taking too many things, or we have like a whole tray of things that like we don't really need, but because so-and-so, or I read this says I should take this, all these things add up because it all sounds good, but do you really need it?
Correct. And I think that's what a lot of what you focus on. You're like, you know, the invasive process in a good way with like actually getting, you know, the blood work of the individual, the results of, you know, maybe a semen analysis or different things that they've already done, or that you know, assist them in getting is how you can, you know, actually truly know this individual or this couple's situation, right? It's not, you know, kind of a one size fits all. Like a lot of people, you know, when we start Googling, we think everything we hear is going to be the answer we need, you know? And you're exactly right. I have a lot of supplements in there that I'm like, I didn't need that. I didn't need that. This has all of that, you know? And I'm like, what am I doing? So would you say, because I know like your focus isn't like, you know, you're 35 to 40 IVF, like you're very much about like the natural approach. So with that said, like, I mean, would you say that you find your patients ending up, like what percentage end up going that IVF route that you're, you know, kind of helping through their journey? Yeah,
so my preference is for couples to get pregnant naturally, and that's really what my focus is. But that's not always possible for everybody. And in general, about 50% of the couples that we work with end up doing either IUI or IVF.
About 50%?
About 50%, yeah.
Okay. And between those two, like, you know, even going from that 50%, like the IUI and IVF route, does it end up being more the full IVF route that gets them the results that
absolutely, much more in terms of IVF, because the success rates are just much higher. Yeah, in certain circumstances, just it's not appropriate for IUI. So it might be a good place to start for some as just a progression and a next step. It also might be a good place, you know, if we want to just see how you respond to the medication, and, you know, if we want to make some adjustments, because IVF is so expensive that it's not a great, you know, it's not a perfect
option for everyone.
Well, no, you know, you can't always take the protocol from an IUI and extrapolate and say, oh, this is exactly what we'll do for IVF. But it's the next closest thing. And I do think that it's helpful in that regard.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As like a stepping stone.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I do want to kind of take a walk with you, go in the backyard. I want to touch on some of my own personal fertility journey. I just think having an expert in my actual home, like that's God sent, or maybe I made it happen, but regardless. So we're going to take a commercial break, but when we come back, I'm going to get personal with you on some of my own questions.
That's great. I'm looking forward to it.
So we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. Stay tuned. It's going to be some great information you'll want to hear. Welcome to Arabella Chiropractic. We are located right here in the heart of Houston, right down the street from Lakewood Church off 59 in Edlow. We welcome you to come visit us for any of your chiropractic or physical therapy needs. We have a licensed massage therapist on board, as well as a tech that's trained to do our ultrasound and stim with hot packs. We also offer physical therapy and, of course, the chiropractic visits, where you can get adjusted and discuss any of those aches and pains to see how we can better help you feel better. Here at Arabella Chiropractic, we want your experience to be amazing. So come see us here at Arabella Chiropractic, where you can discover wellness through chiropractic excellence. Welcome back from the break. If you have just joined us, we are actually in the comfort of my home in our backyard, and we are talking to a world-renowned fertility expert, Dr. Mark Sklar. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about my personal journey and the amazing things he is doing to help women have a baby. So, and again, it's been great chatting indoor, outdoor, and really just that intimate feel of being able to talk on a personal level with you. I've been watching your YouTube channel, and literally I'll go to sleep at night and I'm like, I'm gonna keep listening, and it's just telling me, good information. And as I'm in my own fertility journey, that's why I think found so much value in it. I think, as I had mentioned inside, before I actually got pregnant or, was wanting to get pregnant, I thought, at the time I was like, I'm 39. I was about to be 40. This was about a year ago. And I'm healthy. I was like, and we did get tested as far as our, DNAs to make sure we didn't have anything that would be real serious. Right. We additionally did his sperm analysis like months prior. And there were some tweaks we needed to make. And he did HCG. Mm-hmm. And so, basically we got it to where he was getting those 40 million per ejaculation versus the 4 he had from his previous life of, I don't know, a lot of guys dabble in steroids, right?
Right.
As sad as it is, it's very common.
Yeah, very common.
So we did those things. But I think what's unique about my story, and maybe you have some advice, is I'm not in the category of I can't get pregnant. What's wrong? And not in the category of, I get pregnant, but I keep miscarrying. I'm actually in the category of, I got pregnant and I was 5 months along, I'm yet to really find exactly my situation.
Yeah.
But I guess kind of in that little space, maybe you can touch on that, where getting pregnant's not been an issue, and, it's.
Yeah, it's hard. Your situation's somewhat unique, and that's super unfortunate. That's one of the more difficult and harder situations to manage, quite frankly, in terms of just emotionally and as a couple trying to get through that. Mm-hmm. The situations that women come through, I always feel like if you've been able to get pregnant, even if it doesn't always end the way we want, that I always feel like you're in a better situation than those who've never been able to conceive at all. Yeah. So I always feel like that's a step in the right direction and a positive thing. And there, I think there's two places where I think we need to really look a little bit deeper. So obviously there's that genetic piece, and some of that we can't control. Mm-hmm. Whether it's just genetics because we're older, or genetics because something that either one of the parties have that brought when they created that fetus. But the other piece, if you've had a loss, that I think needs to be considered more is when a woman has autoimmune issues, or blood clotting factors, meaning the blood clotting is causing the miscarriages, or the immune system, that immune condition is also contributing to the loss as well. And I think those are bigger things, and we're seeing them more and more, unfortunately. And I think those are things that need a lot more testing and investigation and going deeper into.
And that's a lot of very valid and great points, because you do feel like, okay, all the things happen, why did we end up here, and who did what wrong for us to end up here,
Yeah.
So in that moment, I'm, basically at this, point of we felt empty, right? I mean, my husband and I, we were ready for a baby, just a few months down the road. I mean, that's 5 months long.
It's right around the corner.
Yeah. And so it was just we had just got married and this happened, and it was, a very atypical situation, right? Yes. I know.
So to me, that sounds like that's where your fertility journey began, right at that moment in time.
Yeah, a fertility journey that I never thought I'd have problems with, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. It was, when we got pregnant naturally, we, having done all that testing to prepare for IVF, we were we don't need to, we've done all the things, and then this happened. And it was so how do you control that? The only way to control that outcome is to actually do IVF, right? Because you can't test an embryo, you cannot test an egg, you cannot test a sperm.
Right.
They have to be an embryo for testing purposes,
sure,
as you know.
Yeah.
And so it was to not have to go through that again, you think that that's your only option. But I guess, what would you say to that?
Well, I mean, to me, that makes the most logical next step for you guys. And it sounds like that was the step that you guys took, right? Is to move towards IVF?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. And so how many cycles or like, where are you? Have you just done one IVF cycle, or where are you in that process?
Yeah,
right
so we did the first IVF cycle as soon as we were able. Like, the situation
Had to
happened
give it
in
a little bit of
November.
time, but yeah.
Yeah, and so we immediately went in, just the way that we felt, it was like we felt like we were here to be parents, and we didn't separate the fact that that's still a child in heaven and it's an angel, will be a part of us always. But we knew we wanted to have some little angels here on earth with us. And we started in February, and we did the first cycle,
Okay.
of which
Of this year. Okay.
Yes, this is like all sewn right
it's
now,
all
right?
fresh.
And so we did it, and we ended up getting 9 retrieved,
Okay.
7 of which were considered mature enough.
Yeah.
From the 7, it ended up going down to 4 that fertilized.
Okay.
And 3 made it to blastocyst, right? Okay. At that point, we sent them off for testing. Because a lot of people were like, what are you waiting longer for? It's like, but we're doing IVF for the testing portion.
Right,
like,
that's the main reason.
Yeah.
That's the value that's one of the values in IVF for you in this situation is that testing. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So, and so we waited, those desperate days again. We waited the 7 days, and turned out that like they all had chromosomal abnormalities.
Abnormalities, yeah.
Yeah, I was sad but mad. You're just like, you're so like, I literally thought that just as simple as, not simple, but getting pregnant, and where I was that like, oh, I found the answer. Here's IVF.
Right, and IVF would take care of that for you. And that's a great point that you mentioned there, because so many couples go towards IVF for this exact reason, right? Because they want that genetic piece. They believe that IVF is going to be the solution to get them there. But I think first and foremost, IVF is not 100% successful in its own right, like just as a procedure, right? Not even, we're lucky if we could get to 40%. And then on top of that, the genetic testing piece, often we end up in a situation like you just had, where you send all these embryos for testing and they come back abnormal. And in an ideal world, they would all come back normal.
Yeah.
But normally, most commonly, that's not what we find. We find that most, I won't say most, but at least 50% come back abnormal, and then we're at least left with some at that point. But in your case, that wasn't the situation. I think the piece that I don't want to leave out in this situation, you kind of touched on it earlier, is that it takes 2 to tango. So, it's not all on the egg here. It's also on the sperm. And, the quality and health of the sperm will help sometimes kind of lift up that egg a little bit more when they're put together, right? When they fertilize. So it's both.
Yeah.
We absolutely need both. And I know we're talking a lot about egg quality, and rightly so, because it is so important.
Yeah.
But I don't want to, for all the viewers listening, I really don't want to leave out the male side of things, because 50% of all fertility issues are male factor related.
50%?
50%.
Wow.
Yeah, and that number is only going up more and more, and sperm quality numbers are only going down every year.
So regardless if you're, producing that 40, they call it 40 million per ejaculation, that doesn't
That's
mean
just
that
the count.
That doesn't mean that they're going to have like all the quality factors that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's just the amount of sperm that we have, the concentration. That's not how well do they swim, how good do they look, one head, one body, one tail, and is everything normal? So we need to factor in all of those things, and all of that plays a role at fertilization and embryo development.
Yeah.
Right. Both the sperm and the egg are part of that development of the embryo.
So it's like all these, like I have a lot of great categories, right? She can get pregnant. She can sustain a pregnancy.
Check,
I was like,
check. Right.
Yeah. And so, didn't get the results we looked for. We waited, and I started watching about the egg quality, and like you talk about, how leading up to fertility, if that's the route that you choose, like, let's make some impactful changes amongst like 90 days. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so, the egg and sperm for this matter need time for the changes that you're making at home, all the things that you're doing to impact their quality. And that's called folliculogenesis or spermatogenesis. And that's the length of time that those grow and develop and mature. Well, we want to influence that at the beginning stage of that. And so that's about 90 days. Okay. For each one. And so we want to impact your next cycle, so to speak, right? If we need one. by starting all the things that you need to start to change now or already, and giving yourself that time to impact your cellular health.
Of course.
Right? And your husband too, because those cells, when you're impacting your cellular health, starting to give it better nutrition and nourishment, starting to provide better, taking care of yourself, all of that's going to impact those cells to improve and become better and healthier. But they need time to do that. It doesn't happen from one day to the next, or from 1 week to the next, or even in this situation, from 1 month to the next. Yeah.
And so with that said, that was advice I got from you specifically. I kind of cheated a little and got started at 2 months instead of waiting 3.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you can't wait.
I had more eggs come to surface on that particular round of IVF than I've ever had. And I only had like 9 in there too. You know, this time I'm like seeing like 18 in there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's part of like the health thing, like you're just kind of creating a healthy batch.
That story you just said, and like how each cycle changed and how they change, is something that we hear all the time.
Yeah.
Like it's not uncommon to go from one cycle to the next, if you go so quickly, that next cycle you're going to produce less.
Yeah.
That's not uncommon to see because of all the medication that you were given and how your body responds. And then you give it that break, and not just a little break. I mean, 2 months is a decent sized break. Then your body had some time to just balance out, and it sounded like you also made some changes. So that helped impact those changes. I also think, you know, with the first one especially, probably even the second, you were under a lot of stress, right? Like going through that loss was so traumatic and so stressful. That's going to impact everything we're talking about as well. That can't be ignored.
So now did my retrieval Saturday. I'm basically, I'll learn today how many of the retrieval made it to blastocyst. We have 8 that have been fertilized. So very promising. My hopes that they can all go from blastocyst to be tested and have some healthy children in there. So we'll definitely have to stay tuned. I'll continue to.
I would love to know how they go and how everything turns out from this cycle.
You know, even though I'm not yet a member of your program, I'm that selfish one that took all your knowledge without getting the extra.
That's what it's there for.
Even the app for what is it called? The fertility, the Fertile Mind. I have that downloaded on my phone.
That's what it's there for.
I do the castrol pack. You know, so like literally, like it's kind of you know, surreal to have you here, and so I appreciate your time and just all the knowledge that you're giving to me and other couples all around the world. So keep it up, and I'll keep you informed as things progress from my end.
Yeah, please let me know how things go.
Thank you. And thank you all for tuning in. If you want to follow Mark Sklar, you can go to Mark Sklar at Fertility TV. He is all over YouTube, amazing videos that you can follow and learn, and join one of his programs so that you can have the baby you've been dreaming of. We'll be right back here next Saturday. We're actually on set. But before we go, I do have a little gift for you.
Oh.
Yeah, we got some Hatching for Health gear.
Oh, thank you.
And this personalized mug for you.
Yay. Thank you so much. So sweet of you.
Just some stuff to take home to San Diego. A little hat for your not so sunny days. So thank you again.
Thanks so much. That's sweet.
Absolutely. We will see you soon here on Hatching for Health. Thank you all for tuning in.